Good morning, HubSpot Nation. Happy Tuesday, February 11th. We're here for another edition of Let's Build Profoundly. Today, introducing Chris Bryant. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. You're doing good work out there, I hear.
Yeah, trying to.
So excited to have you on to let us know what that's all about. And we'll dive right in.
Mhm.
Uh, what is your HubSpot expertise and how did you get it?
Yeah, so great question. My HubSpot expertise is a little tough to describe, as anyone's is, I feel like now, because the HubSpot ecosystem and like the platform in general has just evolved into like this, like you can do just about anything on the tool now. So I, if I were to like look back at like the vast majority of people that I help, it's startups and it's SaaS, which is a lot of companies out there. But I've done CPG stuff, I've done B2B stuff, I've done service businesses, stuff like that. Like I've kind of seen it all, done it all when it comes to that sort of thing. I'd be amiss to find an industry that I haven't helped. What I think that my superpower is around HubSpot really is listening to an individual's talk about their pain points and me helping translate that into how HubSpot can potentially solve some of those things. I'm also very forward in that they might need to change their processes. Like I'm not going to take their process and do it one for one because there's likely better ways to do this because I've worked with 600 or so different companies to date. I've seen a lot of stuff and I know a lot of what other people do and I can kind of help rope that in. I To answer the second half of your question, I cut my teeth in learning HubSpot, actually on the HubSpot community. So there wasn't like a great place to like go and learn HubSpot. At least, you could go to the academy and you learn all that stuff and everything else. And this was when HubSpot still only had a marketing product, no other aspect of it at all. So I remember seeing like some of the old UI elements and stuff like that. But looking at the HubSpot community, people were posting real problems that their real businesses were having for free. And you could go into HubSpot and try to figure out how to solve that. Because it took a while, but eventually you could just go sign up for a developer account, which gave you enterprise everything. And you could just monkey around in there and like take screenshots and share those screenshots with people. And that's how I really cut my teeth. I forced myself every day to go answer 5 questions. Didn't matter if I got a resolution or whatever, a solution out of it. I just wanted to post 5 things every day and try to help somebody else. And that's where I really cut my teeth. And then from there, I was on Upwork at the time because I was also still running a full-time gig. And I knew HubSpot from like a prior gig. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. Maybe I niche it down into this tool. And so then I started getting random jobs here and there on that. But at the same time, going on HubSpot community, just continuing to answer stuff. And that's really where I started to learn on that. And then to date, I think I've been about 9.5, 10 years on this tool.
Wow. How do you get to 600 companies?
So some of it could be a little bit of a fluff, if you will, but I count, if I've been in their HubSpot portal, it's a company. So sometimes it's like, hey, they want a quick little 3-hour consult to help them build an email flow or a nurture flow. And sure, I could spin up some guide and record a quick little Loom video, but they actually want me to sit with them and tell them what buttons to press. And then, try to record these things and share that with them. So I count that as one. So there was a lot of little people, and I don't mean like them as like little organizations. Like some of them were big. They just didn't know how to do something and they just wanted help with something really quick. So I'd say, yep, here's a Zoom calendar. I'll talk to you here in like 2-3 hours and we'll figure this out together. And then I just walk them through it and then they're done and on to the next one. And that's over the course of like 10 years, that's where it got to. Now, sure, there's lots of other companies that I've worked with for 3, 4, 5 years at this point where like I am not their admin, but it's like they'll call me their HubSpot guru or the HubSpot master or whatever it is. And like in some of these teams, I'm the oldest employee next to the founder. Is like I've been in some of these organizations like that where it's like, oh yeah, that person's over here and this person's there, and now I'm like, I think I might be the oldest employee working inside this tool at this point. So that's generally how it is you just try to help people. And in my case, I did a lot of free work. Granted, I had another full-time gig that could support the income, so I didn't really mind it at the time. And I was like learning on the job and so on and so forth. That taught me a lot about HubSpot in general, but also a lot about just working with other individuals and like how to deliver with other individuals in communication or all other stuff. So there was a lot more learning going on there than just like, here's a workflow and here's a list and here's a report sort of thing.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite parts about HubSpot is how impactful like a 15-minute conversation like
Hmm.
can be with somebody. Like even
Yeah.
if they just, especially when it's like, yep, product update over here,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
go check it out, problem
Yeah.
solved.
I have my issue with all the product updates. I love them, but then it's like they release something. I'm like, oh man, I got to go remember like 100 different portals that I did this little workaround, like the today's date change. I was like, I don't even want to try to remember how many of those things I built. I'll just fix them as I encounter them, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Curious, like the journey, like 10 years, obviously
Hmm.
a lot has happened in HubSpot.
Yep.
Back then it wasn't so hard to associate, your skill set with HubSpot. Now I think if customer platform actually meant something as a phrase, then it'd be very easy to tell people,
Hmm.
what we do. How have you seen, like, talk me through the evolution you've seen and why you've chosen to really go full platform?
Hmm.
Because one of the changes, like I've kind of learned it the same way, in the short time I've been, uh, on the on the consultant side of the
Hmm.
HubSpot ecosystem after being on the inside of several companies. Uh, I was in Sprocketeer like constantly for
Hmm.
6 months, just like anybody that wanted to do one-on-ones,
Yeah. Yeah.
just answering questions because that like immediately I understood that was the best way, the only way really to learn
Hmm.
how everybody's using HubSpot differently.
Yeah.
How have you seen that like progress over the past few years?
Yeah. So I think now with I've never been a social person. Like I'm on Facebook, but purely just to communicate with old friends. On Instagram, exact same thing. And then like LinkedIn is like another area. So it's like we have these different communities and they're all kind of like semi talking to one another, with HubSpot being as like the core, the pillar page, if you will, of all this. And you have all these other things kind of feeding into that. What I've noticed is like I joined the Sprocketeer community incredibly late. It was already super established and everything else, and I joined it and I could see questions being asked and so on and so forth inside of that. Again, like I went to the community, the HubSpot community, because like I would find answers there, and then I signed up and tried to start helping people, sort of thing. Um, Now there's so many people talking about HubSpot as a whole and how it solves this and how it solves that and this update and that update. One thing that I have personally seen is like, well, and also the whole evolution of AI and everything else. Because I like myself have probably, or I like you have probably gotten messages of like, ChatGPT told me HubSpot could do this, can it? Sort of thing. And I've had those questions with clients. And another client, like I told them like, this is a little bit of a tangent. I was like, no, you can't do that on your HubSpot account. And then he's like, well, ChatGPT said I could. I was like, yes, you can if you upgrade to Operations Professional, for instance. And if you want to spend $800 more a month, I'll help you do that thing. But right now, your HubSpot can't do that. And so some people, like, I think a lot of clients, and I'm going in all different directions now. I realize that. So pull me back in if I'm going too far. But
I love it. This is
a
what
lot of,
customer platform is, honestly.
yeah. So like a lot of clients, I have to constantly remind myself that HubSpot is not their business. Like they have many other real things to do with real work, and HubSpot just kind of drives some of the processes behind it. And I have to constantly remind myself of that they have other tools, they have other needs, they have in-person things that they have to do, they have to physically do something, they have to log into a different platform that has no integration with HubSpot because it's on a server in the closet behind them, sort of thing. And that needs to work with whatever their business model is. But people often go to these other sources. They go to LinkedIn, they go to Google, they go to Reddit, they go to ChatGPT or Claude or what have you, and try to solve these problems. So people are getting bombarded with a huge amount of information of HubSpot can solve every problem under the sun. And then they get into the tool and they're like, I don't know what any of these buttons mean. sort of thing. Like they can read the guide and so on and so forth, and then they just kind of get lost and they get frustrated, and then they go and talk to somebody else to try to figure this stuff out. With all that being said, I barely remember the first question that you asked, or like the initial question that you asked, but to kind of like tie back my overall thought to this is our clients, or rather HubSpot's customer base, is looking at just so much information from so many different channels that they really are a little bit conflicted in where and when, or not, like where is the right information, or like where is the right thing for their business. And I think a part of the community and the part of LinkedIn and a part, well, you can't really, like, you can prompt AI or whatever and it'll do whatever you want. But like a part of this is for us as individuals who are really experienced on this tool to guide and steer those individuals into the right direction. Sometimes they need to go from nothing to operations professional to get there, but they don't know that. That's where we can say, like, I hear your business problem and I think we can solve it if we do XYZ sort of thing. And I forgot the initial question. I was holding on to a little bit of it and now I forgot it.
No, you nailed it,
Okay.
in no uncertain terms. Like the evolution of, like, basically prior to 2020, HubSpot was still, like, in reality, functionally a marketing tool
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
And the inbound engine that they created, where you could Google anything related to marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and your results were going to be a HubSpot blog, the knowledge base, the academy, or the community.
You're spot on.
And once they introduced custom objects, in my opinion, that is the inflection point that matches Dharmesh's like hockey stick curve,
Yep.
where all of a sudden HubSpot is becoming a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Now, none of those places actually give the right answer all the time,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And that's where the community has done a lot to step up.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a good conversation at Inbound about what it takes to like be a part of that education, like in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you have any advice for, because it's a double-edged sword of everybody is overwhelmed
Yep.
by the amount of information and content out there, but we know there's these massive gaps in terms of like nothing
Yeah.
on Commerce Hub, like
Yeah.
Content Hub even is still lacking. Like if you were to give advice to somebody like that wanted to help, wanted to share knowledge, but maybe didn't just want to do tutorials, like
Mm-hmm.
what would you share with them?
Yeah. So if you want to help people grow on the platform, like what I think would be beneficial is look towards some of the projects or some of the things in your own, like in your own life, right? And go sign up for a developer account. It's free. You get as many test accounts as you want, and it's enterprise everything. You can test any feature on the tool under the sun that you want to over there. And then go build interesting things. And I don't mean that to sound like some verbose, CEO of Fortune 500, like go build cool shit sort of thing. It's more like, for example, I want to build a garden this year. So what I could theoretically do is map out which flower beds do I want, or which garden beds do I want. Maybe I want a type of flower bed that's a summer, winter, spring crop. So like little properties. How big is it? What's the square footage? Because now I can do a calculated space inside there. I know that a tomato, which could be a product on HubSpot, requires X amount of space to grow. And then as I add those line items to that object, it reduces the amount of available space. And all of a sudden, I built a little garden simulator on HubSpot's platform because I want to build a garden in my backyard this year. Now, I'm going to write it down in a notebook because that's easier. But that's like, if I don't know anything about HubSpot, I could start playing around with stuff like that. You could go to your local, like, I live next to a bakery, and I can kind of think like, cool, if they're a bakery, how could they functionally use the platform, right? They're going to have vendors, they're going to have buyers, they're going to have a POS. They're going to have probably like like this company has a couple trucks. So like I know that they sell to other businesses, right? They're going to have orders, and what are those orders, and how much were those orders, and what's the cost of goods sold, and all this other stuff. My background is a little bit too, like I was a COO at another company and I was a marketing operations manager at a different company. So I learned a lot about e-com in general. And that's why I kind of gravitate towards some of that, because I learned every abbreviation under the sun inside of that. And that's kind of like where I get a lot of some of my knowledge from, is like I didn't just do HubSpot, but it's like I implemented HubSpot at these types of companies whenever it was like it was only me doing the whole platform. But that's where I think people can start learning knowledge. Listen to some issues that people have. There's millions of ways to do that. You can go in the community, you can look up people, you can go on LinkedIn, and people are talking about HubSpot all the time, right? One thing that I see a lot of people talk about is like, hey, check out this product update. Here's what it does, and here's why it's impactful, and so on and so forth. But I rarely see somebody say, here's how it can change your business. Like, instead of doing X, you can now use this to do Y, sort of thing. Like, what was it? There's a workflow, there's like a workflows beta that just came out that like changes the entire behavior of workflows, right? And for the longest time, you'll probably remember this, contact workflows were different from any other object workflow because they were built on a different engine because it was marketing at the time. And I don't know, my assumption is this new workflows experience has like put them all on the same engine because it's object agnostic and it can do anything inside of there because I'm still playing around with it. I haven't done everything with it, but a part of me says there's great triggers that we used to have really funky workarounds that we used to do because we had to go make a list to say when this happened, put them on the list, and then use list to trigger the workflow. And it's like you have to build this thing as a jigsaw puzzle, and then it finally works. And now you can simplify that into one thing. So for the people who are talking about that beta, you should take one of your
Workarounds.
cobbled together workflows that you used to do, because we all built them, and say how this new beta fixes that. Because other people on HubSpot Professional and above who have access to workflows might see that. They might not, but they might see that, and you've positively influenced somebody else's experience without having to do anything. Sorry. Now, sure, you're not getting paid
Yeah.
for it, but whatever. If they have something else that they might reach out to, they might say, go talk to this person. They seem to know what they're talking about. Or go, check out this post. And you're going to get, I'm not great at calculating revenues off of like things like this, because it's like it's an untold amount. It's just like whenever I worked at these other companies, like SEO and calculating revenues based off SEO is kind of iffy, right? Because like they might see it on a desktop and they'll go order on their phone and they'll just type in the website direct and it looks like direct traffic. I'm like, well, that probably wasn't it. But you can kind of start thinking about these sorts of things that way, as like starting on HubSpot is not going to be paid work, but it might not. It could be, but it might not. But being able to get out there and learn something that doesn't cost you much of anything, because the barrier to entry inside of HubSpot is free. Anybody can sign up for a developer account and get access to everything. Now, sure, some of the tools don't work. You can't send emails out of it and you can't host a website on it, but whatever, go put, you can build it and just look at it and then learn how to build it and how to organize a portal and so on and so forth. There's lots of resources out there for things like that.
Yeah. And Cameron from Rocketeer made a
Mm-hmm.
post a couple days ago about people trying to break in. And um, the cool part of LinkedIn is that if you share that journey, like as you're learning, like no matter
Mm-hmm.
what level you start from, you'll see opportunities show up
Yeah.
in 30 to 60 days, almost guaranteed,
Mm-hmm.
because it just shows like people want the human authenticity. They want to
Yeah.
know you have a learning mindset, like
Mm-hmm.
all these things. And I'd say like, multiply that by 10 or 100 if you decide to do that with any AI tool.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's exciting times, and it will only take you a few days probably to be ahead of like 80% of most businesses
Mm-hmm.
in terms of AI. But we'll
Yeah.
save that for another
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation. Outside of HubSpot, who
Mm-hmm.
is Chris Bryant?
So my story is, excuse me, I am based out of a little bitty town in Poland. I'm originally from Western Kentucky, but nobody knows the city. But most people know Louisville, Kentucky. That's where I was based out of for a long time. I moved over here because of my wife. We met in college. We lived in the States for a long time. She'd actually been in the States since she was 18. And then we moved over here to Poland to just spend more time with her family. When we left Louisville, we had one kid. We currently have 3 kids. The youngest is now just under 9 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah, he just turned 8 weeks old, actually. So,
Congrats.
yeah, thank you. I have 3 boys. I have an 8, a 2, and now an 8-week old. And I like to do photography. whenever I can. I have told my wife and my whole family who lives over here, it's an injustice to live where we do and to not appreciate the nature that we have. Like, I'm in the mountains. These photos behind me are actually all photos that I took from around this area or within Poland. I have a little, photography website that I post stuff up on every now and then, but they're all, I really appreciate where I live at, and I really like nature whenever I can get out into it. My major was in television production, which obviously I don't do much with that today. But I still remember how to use a camera and all that other stuff. So like I like taking photography and like doing photography whenever I can. I like mountain biking. My favorite part is the beer at the top, because one thing unique to Poland is all the hill. I don't know if it's unique here, but one thing around here where we're at is like at the top of every mountain, there's typically a hostel where you can get a cold beer at the end of the ride, which is really nice. And I go with my
Nice.
brother-in-laws quite often, so that's always my favorite thing to do. Like on the weekend in the summer, is go sweat it out on a bike and then have one or two or maybe three beers.
There you
Top the
go.
weekend off.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Yep.
Um, Something that caught my attention because I've been pretty infatuated with LinkedIn Lives
Hmm.
over the past year. Television production major.
Yeah.
What was the plan there?
So, if you're familiar with a tool called After Effects, I was in college. I was like the only student in like the whole platform or like the whole department that was really interested in motion graphics, is what it was called, and it probably still is, like a MoGraph designer. And I hooked into that stuff. There was a gentleman by the name of Andrew. I can't remember his name. His website's Video Copilot though, but his first name is Andrew, and I can't remember his last name. I learned a ton through him watching video tutorials, because he would just post, "Here's how you create the Walking Dead opening sequence." I was like, "That's cool," and like he showed how to like go outside and take photos of grungy material and like convert it into, put it on your computer, convert it into black and white, and then now you can post it as like a layer over another image of a building and change its colors, and now it looks like it's a really old rusty building, but it's not. I was like, "That's really cool." And I always kind of like hooked into like video stuff. So I majored in that, minored in advertising, paid my way through college doing wedding videography, and then was hired by a company to help them do video work. All the while, they leaned on me as their tools guy. So when they purchased a new tool, hey, Chris knows computers. Get Chris in here to work with the computer. And then I just started learning. I was like, "What's this HubSpot thing? That's cool." And then it just went from there. As like I figured out I wanted to do like website development, because I was a front end designer in another company, and very quickly learned I cannot compete with an Indian WordPress developer, because they will run circles around me for $3 an hour. And that was like several years ago, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. I was like, I look stupid charging $15 an hour, and that guy can do it for $3, and it's better. That I learned I have to niche down into something else. And that's whenever I
Yeah.
was like, I kind of got HubSpot. Maybe I'll try that. And I just was on Upwork, and I was just I just type in the word HubSpot, and I just try to find stuff. And anything that was like remotely similar or had that word, I'd apply. And try to talk to that person who was trying to build on it, and then the community and so on and so forth. And that's how it evolved. It's like I don't do anything now with it other than just like have a hobby. But like I still do some drone videography, and there's where I live at, there's a couple ski lifts. The one down the street, every winter I'll make a video with them, and I still get to get my hands dirty in After Effects, and just build kind of a cool video with like some layovers and some stuff like that. So I still remember a little bit of it, but
Okay.
now it's kind of crazy.
I have to imagine uh, you got to be playing with some AI video tools.
No,
No?
like I mean, like I would go on, there's a tool called Elements where they just have pre-made templates, and like I'll typically go grab one of those and then just kind of put my stuff under it and toy with the the timings and the colors and everything else with it. But I actually haven't toyed with any AI video at all, or really any like generative AI outside of like text prompts. Like I haven't done any images, because like for me, I can still, and I'm sure there's not now, like most AI images, you can typically spot a mile away. Like they don't get text right for some reason. But now I think that there's like some of them that are just nuts. And it's like, I'm like, that's a person, but it's not a real person, sort of thing. I
Right.
know that there's stuff out there like that.
Yeah. I think it's probably good if you don't have time Right,
Yeah,
right.
I'd love to.
I
There's
get
so
it.
many things like Replit, I think is what it is. Like it's whole AI coder. God, I'd love to get in there and like spend 2 or 3 days on that. But I also like playing video games. If I have a free moment, like I'll play a video game or two because it's like I just want something. I used to play a ton of games in college, high school, and that sort of thing. And now I still play
Okay.
mostly little roguelites and stuff like that, though. You can get in for 30 minutes and it's done and over
Okay.
with.
What are we playing nowadays?
um well, I just downloaded Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, so I'm very interested in that because I like the first one a lot. So I do want to play that. Before that, I was playing a decent little bit of Mechabellum is the name of it. It's a 1v1 thing, but it's like a strategy game. You can get it
Okay.
like a get and then like roguelites, um, Slay the Spire,
Yeah.
um, which is the new one I think is coming out sometime soonish. But that was
Is
like
it?
my big one is Slay the
Oh
Spire. Well,
man.
I think that they kind of talked about it, and there was like a DLC for that one that added like a ton of bosses and additional cards and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
kind of looked at it as an expansion, but it was like a community made mod for it. So I love little things like that where I can like get in, play 20, 30 minutes, and if I die, that's fine. That's what a roguelite is. And then you go on to the next thing. So, then I'll go to the next meeting.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh man. Uh, well, we got a couple minutes left.
Sure.
I need to get your take on our upcoming event,
Hmm.
uh, Profoundly Kickoff 2025 on March 6th.
Hmm.
We've got 8 tracks: admins, marketing, integration developer, web developer, AI, RevOps,
Hmm.
founder, and solopreneur.
Yeah.
Which one? Which one are you looking forward to?
So there's two of those that I'm really interested in. Um, the first one being web developer. I think web developers on HubSpot have a great opportunity right now because there's not a ton of them, and the ones that are out there are charging a lot of money, which is good because you can make pretty good money being a like a web developer at the moment. Because again, there's not that many of them out there, and they're typically held by an agency. They're not a freelancer. Um, so I think that anybody interested in doing web development on HubSpot should definitely be checking out Content Hub. I think that if your business is on sales and service or sales and marketing or anything like that within HubSpot, you should really consider moving your website to HubSpot because
Please.
having everything in one spot is like I'm all about saving people time. And then sure, I'll Content Hub at $400 a month is a tough swallow when you can go to like WP Engine or some of these other tools for $30 a month. Like that's tough to swallow. I get it. But that $400 a month is pennies whenever you have your whole system on one platform. And you can look at everything, and your marketer doesn't have to contact the WordPress developer to change a button color on the website or add a new landing page or something like that. Because on HubSpot, the CMS, and a lot of it depends on who built your template. Like, did they build it with flexibility in mind and so on and so forth? But there's that track, and then solopreneur is another track that I'm interested in because that's like my journey anyways, because I kind of like I did freelance until like I was comfortable with a freelance income versus my salaried income, and then I shifted, and then I just like continued growing and growing and growing, and now it's like there's no more hours in the day. Like I've got to figure out something myself to figure out how to put more hours in the day so I can play more Slay the Spire, but then still also help a lot of people on HubSpot.
That sounds like a good plan
Yeah.
to me. And yeah, we're going to be on the web track. Definitely focus on personalized web experiences.
Mhm.
Because one of the most underrated values of HubSpot
It is.
is the CRM powered website
Yeah,
experiences
yeah.
that you can provide. So if you're out there and you want to be a pro like Chris, or join us at kickoff on March 6th, head over to profound.ly, and you can sign up to be a pro and or sign up for the kickoff. Chris Bryant, thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Have a great day, everybody.
Yep.